Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in from right around the Brazos River, which is right over there in Pecan Plantation, hanging out in the RV, and we actually have internet. We just had a pretty good little storm blow through. Looking at the radar, looks like there's more coming. Trevor, I see you on, buddy. You're right around the corner. Trevor was over working on the house today, so I'm glad you guys are joining us. I tell you what, I've got several topics I want to talk about. One of them I want to talk about is eating fish, although I'm going to save that. John Funk, good to see you, brother. Deandra Kimbrough, Kenny Sanderson, checking in from up there in northwestern Kansas. One of my favorite things about doing this show is, you know, folks checking in from all over the nation. It's pretty dadgum fun. Wayne, I was just thinking about you and Josie today, wondering if you guys were hanging out tonight. I see Chris Ketchum from up there around Bells, Texas. Kim Moore from Illinois. Good to see Kim. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about harvest tonight, but first I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my travels. The last few days have been pretty fun. Now, I've been hanging out with lots and lots of grandchildren. Hey, any of you grandparents out there, I'm going to give you a little tip. Let me tell you what I've learned. We now have 13 of the little darlings. Some of them a little feistier than others. Some are just sweet and want to cuddle all day long. Others want to take your glasses off and break them in half. So, so one of the things I've learned, here's a little tip, grandparenting tip. Now for those of y'all that don't have grandchildren yet, keep doing what you're doing. Because when I was younger, growing up, reproducing, you know, raising kids, all that, I really didn't think about now. I didn't think about when I was 66. Well, when we go hang out with grandkids, which we've done that for about the last month and a half, so parents could go on trips. Parents could go give birth to the third one. So, you know, parents could go spend time together alone, and we're taking care of those little ones. Well, here's what I figured out. It's the parents' job to raise them and for them to teach the children rules and for them to have the children abide by the rules. Grandparents, your job is to keep them alive until their parents come home. So, you know, the parents may not like SpongeBob SquarePants, but if SpongeBob SquarePants on your phone keeps them occupied for 30 minutes so they can't kill each other, you've kept them alive. So anyway, here we go. I want to talk about, holy cow, Wayne says they're at the ranch in the new fifth wheel. You got Josie hanging out in a fifth wheel. Josie, you go, girl. I love that. That's sweet. Mike Cottrell, yeah, you know what? I'm hanging out. We're over in Pecan Plantation, which is downstream from Lake Granbury, and we've had a really, really nice rain just come through. I was a little bit worried that the what do we call it? Internet might go out, but so far it's held in there pretty well. Jimmy Mitchell, so what do you think about freshwater clams that are not invasive for water quality in Mountain Home, Texas? I think those are absolutely great. I love it. Travis Paul Smith, I see Travis checking in. Good to see Travis. Let me see here, and I'm going to talk. Girlfriend, God dang it, get off that cord. Go somewhere else. Girlfriend just messed me up. She jumped right on this cord. Girlfriend, no, go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. She's messing with me. So, let's see here. What do I think about freshwater clams? I love freshwater clams. Freshwater clams are an indicator species. Freshwater clams, they're filter feeders, so they have a tendency, well, they live in the mud and they migrate through the mud and they're filtering out their food from the mud. So they're cleansing the mud. They're an outstanding additive to a pond, especially native strains. Don't go exotic on me. Go get the native kind that live there. But I absolutely love them. Now, the thing is with freshwater clams and mussels, freshwater mussels, what they'll do is they'll inhabit, then they'll cleanse the dirt, and over a period of time, if you don't get nutrient input, they have a tendency to cleanse enough and reproduce enough that they can eat themselves out of a job. When that happens, you'll see some of them disappear. Mike Cook, Boy Scouts, checking in. Hey, Vito, good to see Vito. Travis says, how's the newest grandbaby? Let me tell you something. She is an absolute little doll. An absolute little doll. And she is, I think she's now, I guess, a little over a week old, like 9 days old. She's already sleeping 6 hours a night. What's up with that? I can't even hardly sleep 6 hours a night. Let's see, John Funk, Half Acre Pond, Largemouth Bass, Shelling Cat, GB. I don't know what GB is. Golden Shiners. The Shiners seem to be getting overpopulated. Should I add more bass or a different predator? Last stocked largemouth bass about 5 years ago. If the Shiners are getting overpopulated, you know what? I wouldn't worry about golden shiners getting overpopulated, John, because they're, especially in Michigan, their lifespan is not going to be but about 2 years, 3 years at the tops. Now, the thing about shiners that you do want to think about is that they are predator fish, limited by their small mouth size. So that could be an issue because they could inhibit reproduction if their numbers are high. If they inhibit reproduction of largemouth bass, that's not a bad thing. So yes, you can go buy some more. But I'm going to tell you this, that if we need to, if you need to stock a few bass, you can. But I think there are other factors to make you decide if you want to stock more bass. What are the relative weights of the bass you have? What are your catch rates? How do the shiners compare to the other forage fish? Because one thing, if you go back in and correctly stock fish, whether they be largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, walleye, golden shiners, threadfin shad, bluegill, red ear sunfish, pumpkin seeds, or suckers, you can trade problems. So before you do any corrective stocking, be sure to identify the problem, quantify the problem, and then make a choice. I should have recorded that. I liked it. Let's see here. Wayne and Josie. I know Josie's got to be drinking a really nice cab. I'm going to predict that. Christopher Aguilar. Oh, you know what? I'm so glad you did that. Hey, you guys know the drill. I haven't said it yet, but we're 7 minutes in. But hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like and share this to your timeline, and you are eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Yep, got one this week. Being a somewhat transient homeless fisheries biologist, sometimes I don't remember to bring a hat. And a granddaughter had her first day of school today, so she wants to FaceTime me and talk. But we're going to do that later. So, Leanne is supposed to be, and I haven't talked to her about this, but I think she's going to find some more Pond Boss mugs because our supplier ran out or went out of business or something. Vito, thankful for August rains. You know, it's really been an interesting dadgum summer. It really has. You know, with these, like in July in Texas, you can usually take the high daily temperature over a 31-day period, divide it by 31, and it's in triple digits. Well, this year, July, I bet you we didn't hit 100 by maybe 1 or 2 days. And a lot of days it didn't get out of the 80s, so very thankful for that. And I'm in the RV, and I can hear rain just spattering on top of the RV, so it's pretty darn cool. So very, very thankful for this weather. Somebody called me and asked me today about the house. Well, yes, we have a house. We bought it. Now we're remodeling a little bit. Debbie wanted to take a wall down, open up the kitchen to the living room. She's in the middle of that. We're not far from being done. We probably won't get to move in until, Debbie says, until like October 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to be hanging out in the RV. This is pretty funny. In my life, it's always been an adventure. And I can't decide whether to be cremated and mixed with acrylic and turned into fishing lures, or be buried somewhere, probably next to my mother, and the headstone say, "Here I go, next adventure." But life is a very, very fun adventure. And when people ask me, "How you doing?" I always tell them, I'm still leading a pretty cool life. How about you? And I am leading a very cool life. So now, being homeless, it never dawned on me that we'd be taking our laundry to our kid's house. say, can we use your washer and dryer to do our clothes? Well, I'm absolutely loving it. So, pretty dadgum fun. I don't know where I'm going with that, other than to say that living this life is pretty dadgum fun. I'm getting to roam around. I want to tell you about a project. Actually, I went to look at 4 different lakes on let's see, Saturday and Monday. I'll tell you about that in just a minute because it's pretty dadgum cool. John Funk said they're bluegills. Oh, okay, I got it. I see. GB is gill blues. Got it. Gill blues. All right. I don't know that I would stock more largemouth bass. Like, I'm going to stand by my answer I said a while ago. Okay, here we go. Paul Tuzzolino from upstate New York, Catskills, I do believe. And Paul's had a couple of covers of our magazine. He's an outstanding photographer, outstanding writer, and just a rock solid public servant, and just a great human. So Paul, we have green dust on our pond. Seems to go away when we get a rain shower. What is it? Well, you know what? There's a couple of things that could be. Actually, I can think of 3 things. There's an article coming up in the next issue of Pond Boss that describes whiting or whitening of water. It tells what happens when dense phytoplankton blooms alter the chemistry of the water and release lime into the water. You need to read that. That's a very, very informative article. It's coming up in the very, very next Pond Boss. The second thing it could be is if you get a green dust on top of the water, very likely that's some kind of phytoplankton dying, or algae, or blue-green algae. So that green dust almost looks like spilled paint, and it's temporary. Another thing it could be is microbial colonies like periphyton growing on a substrate, algae photosynthesizing, breaking loose from its substrate, floating to the top, spending a few hours there, breaking up and sinking. The other thing that it could be is it could be a plant. You know, now, if you had something like water meal, it's not going to disappear. It's going to get worse. So what typically happens is when you get a rainfall and plankton die off, they start to decompose, they float. Looks like something's floating on top of the water, almost like pollen. Sometimes it looks like pollen. And then you get a rain that breaks up those cells, releases its gas, and it sinks. Well, that sounds pretty good. So I'm going to stay with it. All right, Clint Benbow. Clint, I want to ask you a question. I got to tell a story here. And Clint, I know you got to be that. I mean, you're in North Carolina. Tell me how you're related to Ted Benbow. Ted Benbow has been a long-time subscriber of Pond Boss. Actually, he bought Dale Earnhardt a subscription to Pond Boss years and years and years ago. And several years ago, golly, it's such a cool story. I need a campfire to talk about it. But we had a Pond Boss conference at Big Cedar Lodge in Missouri. Well, Johnny Morris popped in, and we were talking, and he asked me, he said, hey, you want to go to Talladega? I said, do not invite me to do something unless you mean it. He said, I totally mean it. So I said, yeah, I'd love to go to Talladega. He said, well, I can get you to Talladega, but I can't get you home. I said, I don't care. That's fine. So I got with Debbie. Debbie said, sure, you can go to Talladega. I don't care. So this was in Missouri. So the next morning, Johnny Morris picked me up in his pickup truck. Johnny Morris owns Bass Pro Shops. He picked me up in his white Chevy truck. We drove up to the airport in Branson, and up pulls this plane that says Gone Fishing on the side. Well, he and I climb in that plane. We fly down to Oxford, Mississippi, pick up Johnny's son, John Paul, then and a couple of his running buddies. Then we fly to Talladega for the Talladega NASCAR race. So we get an entourage going on, and I'm just, my head's spinning because I don't get to do stuff like that. That's just dadgum cool. So we go, it's probably 20 minutes before the race starts. So a sheriff's deputy is escorting us, Alabama sheriff's deputy. Ray Scott talks about them all the time. So escorts us into the infield. So we're in a Suburban and we go around and I get to hang out with Johnny Morris and a bunch of here's what he said. He called them rednecks. Hang out with a bunch of rednecks watching the race. Well, about 15 minutes before the race, his guy, Truex, wrecks out. So he said, let's go. So we climb in, we head toward the airport, and he said, listen, I don't know what to tell you about how you're going to get home. Where do you need to go? And I said, well, I don't need to go to Texas. I really need to go to North Carolina. Because I need to go to Richmond Mill Lake, because I need to be there Tuesday, and it's Sunday. He said, well, I can get you a ride. So he said, just keep your phone by you. Well, I've been taking pictures with my phone, because all this happened spontaneously. And so, and he climbs aboard the plane goes out, it's about to taxi, and he calls me as the plane's taxiing. He says, hey, Palm Boss, listen, I got you a ride. You see there's two big black planes over there with a number 3 on the side? He said, those are Earnhardt planes, Teresa Earnhardt. And he says, so go over there and talk to Deborah, and she's going to get you a ride to North Carolina. So I started hoofing it across the tarmac, on the edge of the tarmac on the grass, and I go over to that one of those planes, and there's a lady standing there with a clipboard. And I said, are you Deborah? She says, yes. I said, I'm Bob Lusk. She said, well, Johnny just called me. You need a ride to North Carolina. So I said, yes, I do. She said, okay, well, come on aboard. Happy to take you. And so I come in, and this plane is like a small American Airlines, commuter jet. Probably seats 45 people. And I'm giddy. Like that 7th grade girl at a sleepover on Friday night. And so I go in and I take a seat, and here the plane starts to fill up. There's probably 30 people coming on board, and they're all pit crew guys. They're all guys that were just in the race. They're exhausted. They all know each other, and they're from different teams. And then a flight attendant comes through and starts giving all of us a bag that's a lunch. Well, heck, an hour and a half later, we're touching down in Statesville, North Carolina. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? I don't have a car. I don't have a ride. And the plane taxis up to the terminal, or to a hangar, and everybody gets out. And all these guys but me, they spread out and they go everywhere. So I go into the terminal, and I'm kind of scratching my head because I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm in Statesville, North Carolina. I have no idea. So I'm thinking, okay, now who do I know here? And I thought, you know what, Ted Benbow, he lives around here somewhere. So I started looking for Ted's phone number. And I called him and left him a message. And this was probably 7 years ago. I don't remember. But anyway, in a minute, I see this guy taking the trash from an airplane, putting it into a trash can. The airplanes are parked inside the hangar. He's closing the hangar door. He's the only guy there. And he comes out into the office where I am, where I'm looking on my phone trying to figure out how I'm going to get somewhere, because all I know is I'm at the airport in Statesville, North Carolina. I've got 3 bars on my phone and 14% of my battery left. Had my phone plugged in right there trying to charge the battery. And he comes in, he says, hey, do you need a ride? And I said, well, yeah, maybe I do. I don't know where I'm going. I said, so, sure. He said, well, how'd you get here? So I told him the story. Johnny Morris invited me yesterday. I flew in with him, and then I hitched a ride here. And I really just need to find a hotel, because it's starting to get late in the day. It's like 6:30 or 7 o'clock, 8, something like that. So he takes me to a Holiday Inn, and as we're riding along in his car, I see a Bible laying on his dashboard. And I said, I love it when a guy has a Bible on his dashboard. I said, what's your role here? He said, well, there's 2 planes. I said, yes. He said, the plane you didn't ride on, I was the pilot of the other plane. I said, okay. He says, and I read my Bible to and from work every day. He said, I always read several passages. Before I leave, I look at it. When I get to the airport, I look at it. When I get back, I look at it. When I get home, I look at it. And I thought, golly, that's a man of faith flying the plane. That's pretty dadgum cool. So I told him my story, and he just started laughing. And he said, how about if I just take you to the Holiday Inn? So I go to the Holiday Inn, and I'm still giddy as heck. So I go straight up to the Holiday Inn, go in the clerk, and I said, hey, can you help me find a rent car? Well, they'd had a storm pass through that day, and a tornado hit, damaged a bunch of houses, tore up a bunch of cars, and all the rent cars were occupied. So I thought, holy cow, I remember Ted Benbow. I remember Ted buying a subscription. I remember all that. And so I'm going to see if I can find him. So I called him, left him a message, didn't get to talk to him. But I also happened to have one of the NASCAR drivers, Newman, phone number. But he wrecked out that day. So I thought he's going to be in kind of a bad mood. I don't know if I need to call him or not. So I waited a little bit, and I called Newman, and I said, hey, man, because I couldn't get Ted, and I called Newman, and he said, you're in Statesville? I said, yeah, I'm at the Holiday Inn. He said, how'd you do that? So I said, he says, you're not the pond boss, you're the pond bum, hitching rides. So he said, Ryan says, I'll send a guy to pick you up in the morning. So he sent a guy named Junebug to come pick me up. The next morning, we went out. I spent the morning that Monday with Ryan Newman driving around his ranch and looking at his ponds, and then Junebug hauled me to Richmond Mill Lake. And I still didn't get to talk to Ted. So I think that's kind of a cool story and talk about it. Paul Tuzolino just sent me a picture of the green dust. Let me see if I can look at it here. That is, let me look at it here, Paul. That almost looks like whiting. That almost looks like what goes on with a pond that's got fairly high alkalinity in it. And I'm going to tell you that's really nothing to worry about. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Okay, let me go back here, get back in this. Uh-oh, now I can't see the questions. I got to figure this out. Y'all bear with me a minute. So anyway, that's my story about going to Talladega with Johnny Morris and hanging out with Ryan Newman. I've been pretty lucky. I've been a real lucky guy. Yep, Trevor Shot Vet just says, identify the problem, quantify the problem, solve the problem. Yeah, he's right. That's right. Holy cow, I need to back up here. I've lost track of where I am. Y'all bear with me a minute. I got to get this figured out. Okay, I know there's going to be other questions. So I'm going to tell you, as I cruise back through this thing here, the last few days I got to go do some really fun stuff. I got to go take a look at a lake in East Texas over west of Mount Enterprise, where I'm getting to help design the habitat. So at that point, where the guy was over there, Corey Simmons, who may be watching the show tonight, he watches this show quite a bit. Trying to get my computer to get up here so I can see all this. So anyway, he's about 2/3 of the way through with his dam, and now it's really time to drill into the habitat. So here's what I told him, and this will be something appropriate for all you guys. Here it comes. Now I'm getting it back. So you need to take advantage of what nature offers when you're building a lake or a pond and you're trying to design the best habitat. Now keep in mind, here's a big tip. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a lake where somebody, they always know what to do about bass attraction, about bass habitat. But what people don't think about is, first of all, you got to have happy water. Y'all know that. I've just hammered that home almost every broadcast. Then the next thing, you got to have the very best habitat. Not only do you have to have the best habitat for the target species you're after, you got to have the best habitat for what they eat. And so when you look at food chains, they're called trophic levels. You're looking at the different levels of that food chain. And every food chain trophic level, to move up one, there's usually a 10 times or a 10x conversion. So you got to have 10 pounds of plankton to grow 1 pound of insects, and etc. You got to have 10 pounds of insects to grow 10 more pounds of bigger insects and tiny fish. You have 10 pounds of that to grow 10 pounds of the next level. You got 10 pounds of, I'm saying 10 pounds to grow, 10 pounds to grow 1 pound. So 10 pounds of bait fish to grow 1 pound of game fish. So how important it is to create habitat for all those different levels. If you don't have the levels to grow periphyton, and for phytoplankton to grow in the water column, for fish to spawn, for nursery habitat, then your lake or pond, your fishery is not going to be nearly as successful. Let's see here. I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay, so Clint asked me, what's your opinion on liquid lime products? You know, I'm getting to be a bigger fan of liquid lime products. I'm beginning to see that, you know, when you go buy ag lime, it's only a fraction of that is actually lime. The rest of it is something else. You know, so the mission is you got to get up to like 100, well, you know, something above 40 parts per million total alkalinity, which is calcium carbonate based alkalinity. So if you can get it from Calcis or any of the other liquid lime products, go get it, you know. So as we're going along in this pond management industry, there's new products and new ideology coming out all the time to help keep water happy. So my opinion on liquid lime products, Calcis, I actually like that stuff. It's soluble. It can get the alkalinity up. The thing about ag lime, here's the difference. Here you go. This will be your answer. This will be an answer. Calcis does it immediately. It's like a quarter horse. When the gate opens, it hauls out of the gate, wins the race, there it is, it's done. Ag lime dissolves slowly, perpetually, over a longer period of time. So my opinion is not necessarily based on total fact, based on my experiences. The Calcis gets the alkalinity up. Ag lime takes longer to act, but it dissolves slowly over a long period of time, and it perpetuates it. So, let's see, the rest of your question is, I'm assuming the liquid doesn't last as long. I think that's a safe assumption. Drew, hey buddy. Let's see here, Philip Benefield. Oh yeah, there's Trevor again. Let's see here. Let me roll this down so I can see what's going on. Doesn't know how it knows. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like. Share this to your timeline. Then you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug. Trevor just reminded me that this Pond Boss mug does not. It keeps hot things hot and cold things cold. We don't know how it knows, but it knows how to do that. Hey, and also, Pond Boss Magazine. $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date. You're gonna spend at least $40 on a Friday night date, and it's gone this year. You get nugget phone calls, so I'm gonna let that go. So, Drew Hay lost his top fan badge. I don't know what that. I don't pay any attention to that. I don't have a top fan badge. I don't know how that works. So there we go. Tuz, you're welcome. Stan Lee, good to see Stan. Hope y'all doing okay. Tell the yap. Debbie say when someone asks, how you doing? Better than I deserve. You know what? There you go. That's a Dave Ramsey answer there. That's good. That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Ted is my dad. Well, Clint, tell your dad the Pond Boss loves him and appreciates him because he's been a Pond Boss fan for a long, long time. Danny Mac, happy you're here. Danny Mac, I'm happy I'm anywhere. Okay, Travis Paul Smith, did I find out more about the Titan bass? Yes, I did. I'll be ready to talk about that before long because I got just a little bit more due diligence to do on that. I will need to ask some questions beyond the company spin. So I do know a little bit more about it. Actually, there's a couple of them there that I haven't talked to you yet that I want to. Hey, John Wilson, good to see you. What are you going to do with all those Cleveland Indians hats now that they're changing their name? The Cleveland, what are they? Marauders? Heck, who knows? I don't know. But I respect that, sort of. Mike Brotherly, Clint Bimbo, awesome story. I wish you would have called me. I would have picked you up. Dude, I didn't have your phone number. No, and your dad did not answer his phone that day. But I called him. I found him. Stephen Martin, nice for a pilot to be a man. I tell you what, he was. I love that. There's R.E. Thompson checking in from Mississippi. Good stuff taking off on you. Dude. What? R.E. Thompson, in his 80s, taking off on a motorcycle ride to the mountains of North Georgia. You know, Mr. Thompson, I am 66. And you're in your 80s. And you're pissing me off. Because now I'm going to have to get my body in better shape so that I can do kind of adventures like you're doing. So I appreciate that stimulus. I really do, because that's pretty amazing. All right, let's see. Todd Austin, Ben Ship, what's the best way to introduce lily pads to your pond or what not to? All right. Danny Mac, I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you I've not watched all your videos and what your quandary is. So I do know that part of your quandary is you're trying to keep your water clear and you're doing some things to amend the water to keep the water happy. Let me tell you my definition of happy water. Here's my definition of happy water. Happy water isn't clear. Clear water is sterile. Happy water is the medium that stays autonomous and consistent without spikes in pH, without drastic chemistry changes, and radical temperature changes through a short period of time. There's my fundamental definition of happy water. I want water that is the medium that is consistent. Kind of like the atmosphere in this RV. It's 68 degrees. I like it. There's enough air. The black water tank doesn't smell bad. If you have an RV, you know what I'm talking about. I've learned how to manage that. And so, happy water is water that is consistent. Day in, day out, the temperature might fluctuate, which, you know, what do you do about that? You live with it, you know. But the second part of this is you also know water is the medium, and biologists and scientists call it the universal solvent. Anything that can dissolve into water will, which means nutrients, which means metals, minerals, parts of a Volkswagen, grass clippings, you know. So the water being the medium, it's the vehicle, and when things dissolve into it, especially nutrients, metals, and minerals, something's going to grow. So when you're trying to manage clarity, what you're really managing is the nutrient load in it compared to the metals and the minerals that facilitate the nutrients to grow something in those temperatures. So when you got the right temperatures, you got the right food, and you have sunlight, something's going to grow. So if the mission is to try to have clear water, then you're battling these other two things because sunlight isn't going to allow that, you know. So you're not going to put a big shade over your pond to keep the sunlight out of it just so you can have clear water. So the mission is to try to manage the nutrient load by managing what grows in it. And what you've done some, Danny Mac, is to manage the chemistry by utilizing some of the tools in the pond management toolkit to bind phosphorus, to keep those minerals and metals from facilitating growth from the remaining nutrients. So it's kind of a complicated way of saying that you continue to amend your water and the water's always going to push back if it has the ingredients for something to grow in it, which means it's not going to be clear, which is absolutely perfectly normal in a pond. If a pond is clear, something else is going to happen. I got to thinking about this. Nancy Griffith died this last week. I didn't know a lot about her, but I'd seen a bunch of her songs. Look her up when you get a chance. watch her sing from a distance and listen to the words. Because when I hear that song from a distance, especially by Nancy Griffith, I hear her looking at a 30,000 foot view down on the earth and all the things that are working in harmony. Well, nature is going to try to seek a balance, but never allow it. Listen to that. That's real important. For you folks that are managing ponds and lakes and lawns and gardens and children, nature wants to have a balance, but it won't allow it. Because something is competing against the balance while something else is competing for it. And if you understand that concept of nature, it's going to make you a much, much, much better pond manager. So Danny Mac, what you're trying to do is manage your water for clarity, where the water's going to say, we love you, Danny. Not going to happen. And then you're going to say, well, maybe it is. So then you do this treatment, and the water says, oh, that felt good, thank you. Now we're going to do this to you. And there's something else that's going to pop up. So you got a little juggling act, a little balancing act. And that's the way it works with fisheries. That's the way it works with plants. That's the way it works with happy water. And the more you understand that, the better manager you're going to be of your water. So now then, I hope that's enough of a comment, Danny Mac. If it's not, type something in there, buddy. Philip Benefield, having an acre and a half pond, West Georgia, needs structure. A bunch of 20 to 30 foot live oaks I have to cut. Well, I hate somebody having to cut live oaks. I hope you're talking about trimming them. Would those work for structure, and what would be the best way to anchor if I drop them top first from the bank? An acre and a half pond. Here's what I'm going to tell you, Philip Benefield. Lay those limbs out for a little bit and allow the leaves to turn brown. Even if they fall off or not, doesn't matter, but allow them to turn brown. And then put the and then put the limbs in the water. Because what you don't want to contend with is green stuff decomposing in the water column. You don't want to deal with that. So what I would do is, I tell you the way that I like to anchor those is I like to buy some twine. Whether it's, it can be jute. It can be, jute might be a little bit lightweight. It can be some kind of biodegradable cord. And if you can tie a concrete block on them and anchor those limbs in bundles that are about as big as a pickup truck and tether them to a concrete block, you want the block to sit on the bottom, have enough slack where the wood can float, but it can't move. So tether that wood to that concrete block like you'd anchor a boat in a lake. And what will happen is that wood will waterlog over a period of time. Might take 6 weeks, might take 2 months. And then it's going to sink and settle in. Think airspace. Corey Simmons gave me that word this weekend. I'm thankful to have that. That's good. Think airspace. You want fish to be able to move in, move around through it, and then live in it or be able to leave from it. So think airspace. That's a good word. Okay, let me see what else is going on here. Better late than never. Thanks for the cyanobacteria info. Okay, look at that. There we go. Mark Dyer, good deal. Mindy Rouse, we are off grid. How do we figure out what size solar panel pump to get for our pond? It's about 100,000 gallons. You know what? We had a great series of articles in Pond Boss magazine. Holy cow, I'm trying to think when we did that. We did that last year. A 3-article series on solar power and what you can run off of that. I tell you something to do. Go to the Pond Boss Resource Guide. Go to www.pondboss.com. Click on the resource guide. There are several vendors that have solar-powered aeration systems. And check that out. Because that way you can get some pretty good information. Okay. And when you say solar pond pump, I don't know if you're talking about aeration or if you're wanting to pump water to drink. But spend a little time on the resource guide and you're going to see some real good information. There's I think 4 vendors that do solar powered aeration, and then we had a 3-part series on solar power. So you can look those up and find those. Dave Weber checking in from Kansas, well actually Missouri, northeast of Kansas City. If I stock only male bluegills and female green sunfish in my 0.2 acre hatchery nursery pond, will I be able to create my own supply of hybrid bluegill? Yes, yes. But when you spread the fins and look at those little fish, Dave Weber, you better know what you're talking about. So yes, you can. Now, with the way here's something kind of cool. Is all the hatcheries, when they do that, they only use female green sunfish. So typically they're sexing those fish in the springtime when they're egg laden. And it's not easy to find female green sunfish. So now I had something pop up on my dadgum computer and I can't see the questions. There it is, okay. Vito says, clear ponds, open sushi bar. See, Danny Mac, that's a good point. So you're out there. Okay, Travis Paul Smith. This COVID is no joke. I've had a friend, yep, okay. 4 more fighting for the lives on ventilators. Please be, yep, you know what? You guys heard what I said last week about, the vaccination and your right to, not be mandated by the government. Debbie's doing fine. She took the COVID test, tested negative, and so she's working out just fine. Man, I hate to hear that, Travis. That's so rough. Stephen Martin, my pond is still leaking. Hoobs has said I need to ask about pond moss. Okay, I tell you what you do. Talk to call Mike Otto. Stephen, talk to Mike Otto. Mike Otto, I'm gonna give you his cell phone number. He'll shoot me. He ain't watching this anyway. He won't know. Josie, Josh, Cabernet Sauvignon, 2019 tonight, and a bottle of water. My kidneys and my liver deeply appreciate that water. Mike Otto's cell phone number for those of you that want to build a lake, talk about leaky ponds, talk about anything dirt, anything watershed, give him a call. I'll tell you a story about Mike Otto in a minute. 903, no wait, that's not right. Holy cow, Otto, what's his number? It's not 903. Holy cow, I've lost it. What is it? Had it memorized. I know this. It's 736-5333. Bruce Candello says, pour an old fashioned and counteract that wine. What are you drinking today, Bruce? Love you, man. Whatever the dadgum, it's not 817. Jeez. I forgot his area code, whatever the area code is for Lindsay, Texas, 736-5333. Or send an email to Mike at ottosdirtservice.com. Or you know what, send me an email at boblusk@outlook.com and I'll forward it to Otto. That's what we'll, I got it, 940-736-5333. That's Mike Otto's cell phone number. Give him a ring. Mike Cook, waiting on his pond to fill from the runoff. He'll be hydro seeding. He's up in North Cackalack. Bruce is drinking a 13-year-old bourbon. Cheers. I'm drinking a 2-year-old red wine. Just don't tell Debbie. Oh, she won't care. 940, attaboy, Vito. Attaboy. Vito works for the phone company. He ought to know all these area codes. All right, so now I wanted to go backwards a little bit and talk about some of these projects. I want to talk about harvest. I want to talk about eating fish. On Saturday, I got to go hang out. I told you about this Corey Simmons, who's in the middle of building a lake that's going to be 6 to 8 acres. He doesn't know yet because he doesn't know where the height of the dam's going to be. And until they figure out the height of the dam, he won't know where the spillway is going to be. And the spillway is going to end up being the water level. So in the meantime, he has taken a laser transit, where he can check elevations, and he's sticking flags around the perimeter of what's going to be the lake. So what I tell folks to do is do that. Go set surveyors flags around where the lake's elevation is going to be, where the water level is going to be. Then you can start making decisions on what to do under the water line, at the water line, and above the water line. And that's real important, because if you're taking out trees that are 3 feet above the vertical elevation of where your pond's going to be, you're killing trees you don't need to kill. You know, that might be the tree that you can hang a rope on with a trapeze on it so the kids can swing out and fall in the water. You know, you're also taking out trees that might end up being the best wildlife attraction trees for waterfowl, or for, you know, things like bald eagles, golden eagles, ospreys, you know, kingfishers, which are fun to watch. You know, so be smart about that. So anyway, spent some time with him, and he still got some dirt work to do. And one of the things that happened when he set those flags, he could see where his shallow water is going to be. Shallow water is your number one nemesis when you're designing a lake or a pond. You know, a lot of guys say, golly, I don't know if I want to spend the money to bulldoze out and get rid of that shallow water. And then when I tell them, you know what, if you don't, you're going to spend $2,000 a year buying algicides, and herbicides, killing plants where you don't want them to grow. And you do that for 4 years, you spend $8,000, it's going to cost you $3 to do the dirt work. Go do the dirt work. And when you explain it to them like that, they get that. And then the second place I went and looked at was out west of Jacksonville, Texas, where a fella from Houston bought some property. It's got about a 25-acre lake on it, and the lake was just totally overcrowded with bass. So he had it electrofished by a professional company, did it twice. They said, you know, both of them said, here's the deal, you need to be culling bass because you're way bass crowded. Stock some bluegill, start feeding the fish. Well, 4 years into it, he's not seeing an increase in relative weight. He's still harvesting bass. Their numbers are really high. So as we got to talking about it, we drove across the top of the dam, and the dam is compromised. So as we were talking, and he told me this before I got there, he's worried that his dam is compromised. He's wondering whether he needs to fix it or not. And this is where the story gets kind of entertaining. And we're in a boat Saturday. We're driving around looking at the front side of the dam, and about 20% of it, it's a straight up and down slope where it's eroded, and the prior owner had put these rectangular granite blocks on it. And as we got closer, I started seeing names on those blocks. I thought, holy cow, did somebody go hijack a cemetery? Those were headstones. And I looked at him, I said, dude, are those headstones? He said, well, I think he owned a monument company and maybe somebody misspelled somebody's name. So I kind of breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief and got to looking, and there's all these giant chunks of granite and marble along the front side of this dam trying to hold it in place. But the deal maker to me was, I saw Eurasian water milfoil, I saw coontail growing out of control, fragrant white water lilies everywhere, water shield, and stumps sticking out of the water. So I said, okay, you've tried for 4 years to convert this fishery and it isn't working. You can't get this pickle unpickled. And he pretty well resolved himself to what I was going to tell him. I said, you need to drain the lake. If you will drain the lake and let it sit, then you can come in and fix the front side slope. Now, part of the problem was the dam is covered in trees on both sides. He's got some really big trees that have been growing for 20 years. He's got some willow trees that are 14 inches in diameter. He's got some ash trees. He's got some cedar trees. So what my suggestion was, and I think that the bulldozer guy had the idea before I did, was to go in, clean some trees off, and then start shaving the dam down. Now pick up all that granite, get it off. Shave the dam down about 6 feet, and the dirt that you're shaving off, you're using to create a new slope on the inside after the lake is mostly empty. And while the lake is empty, allow the perimeter of it to dry up as much as it can. Now it sounds easy, but the reality is that muck drains slowly. It doesn't drain fast at all. You know, I've seen lakes sit for 18 months and you get down 18 inches underneath and they're just as wet and mucky and look like pudding as they did, you know, when you drain the lake. But what the problem is the dam slope needs to be fixed. So if he can shave dirt off that top of that dam to create the slopes, the 3-to-1 slope that he needs, especially on the inside slope of the dam, then come back and replace some of that granite. Got a gnat bugging me. Then he can fix the dam and then come back in. He's got, right adjacent to the lake, he's got a big band of clay where he can take clay and come back in, raise the dam back up that 6 or 7 feet, compact it, have his 3-to-1 slope, and he's dug himself a hatchery pond over beside the lake from where he's excavating clay. Well, while all this is going and the lake's down for 8 months, 9 months, or a year, then he can take a mini track hoe or even a bigger track hoe, go around and dig out some of those soft slopes all around the edge. It's soft slopes where all those plants are growing. And whoever built the lake left a bunch of standing timber. He sent me a picture today, and there is just oodles and gobs of pointy stumps sticking up off the bottom of the lake, which is like bumper boats when you're driving around the lake. He likes to guide people. He's using it as a ministry. You know, and you got somebody in the boat that you're trying to minister to, and you bump into a stump and they get thrown in the lake, then the whole mood changes. You know, and so what he's going to do, and he sent me pictures, the lake's only down 18 inches, and half the lake's, well, all the lake shoreline is exposed, and probably 25% of the perimeter, 25% of the lake is exposed. So now what he's going to be able to do is, as the lake continues to fall, then he's going to be able to let it dry just enough to go around the perimeter, get rid of a bunch of stumps, increase the safety, take a bunch of those stumps, dig them up, take the root balls, turn them upside down, and create fish structure out of that. So he's going to get to go around the perimeter of this lake, if the soils allow it, and then improve the habitat so he can improve the fishery. So while the lake is down, fix the dam, and it's going to cost some money, but what's it worth, right? I mean, go price a bass boat, and you ain't going to pull it with that pickup. You know, he's going to spend less than that to redo the habitat, get the fishery down. He wants to eliminate all the fish, which makes sense because they're not responding after 4 years, which means that they were so far upside down, so far with age and lack of growth, that he can come back in, redo the habitat, amend the water, put a bunch of lime in before it fills back up, get the dam repaired, fix habitat, fill it up, restock it properly, and in 18 months to 2 years, he's got a brand new fishery that's going to be fun with chunky fish, you know. And so I'm all in it for him, and I love it. And then after that, I drove up to Texarkana, spent the night, and then met some guys in Texarkana, Arkansas. Drove over to Hope, Arkansas. Now the mission there is, here's another lake that they want to use in a ministry. They want to be able to bring church elders out to have meetings, spend time together fellowshipping in boats and catching fish, and then turn around and have the elders plan events for youth to come out and catch fish. So they're going to have a harvest plan at some point. The two guys that are doing it, there's one guy and his brother-in-law, and they say, you know, it's okay if we can catch a 13-pound bass one of these days. Well, the problem with that lake is they got a great place to build a dam that's going to impound about 25 acres of land, of which 5 to 7 acres of that's going to be less than 2 feet deep. So the take-home point I left with them and their homework is to set up GPS, set up laser level, whatever, and go set flags for the shoreline, which has mostly been done, but then set flags at 3 feet deep. That way they're going to see all the water that's less than 3 feet deep. And what I told them was, you know what? If you need to give up 5 acres of this lake to get the depth that you need, that's worth it. If you can have a 20-acre lake instead of a 26-acre lake, and you don't have any water less than about 5 feet deep, you've had a home run. And you can take that dirt and you can accentuate points, make better points. You can create peninsulas, you know, that where guys can come out and fly fish off the end of the peninsula. You know, so it's all about making sure that they've got the right depth. So that's kind of the stuff I've been doing that's really fun. going back to in the title, whoever typed it up said I was going to talk about eating fish. Pond is like a garden, folks. You're going to create it. You're going to grow something. At some point, you got to harvest some fish. Visiting with the guys, what made me think about that topic and told them to write about it, to describe it a little bit, was the guys there in Texarkana. They said, oh, we love to eat bass. Well, you better, because if you got a 20-acre lake that you haven't maximized the habitat, even if you've got the best habitat, you're going to be eating 500 pounds of bass. That's going to be 700 bass a year. That's 2 bass a day. That's 700 bass you're going to be calling. So harvesting is a big deal. So I'm getting kind of toward the end of the hour here. So happy water. Happy water means we want water that's autonomous, it's consistent, the pH doesn't change. You can't do much about the temperature because we're dealing with nature. So keeping happy water, great habitat for all the trophic levels. You want things to be able to spawn. You want places for fish to congregate. You want fish to be able to ambush. So you need to be able to create the different kinds of habitat. Food chain, 10 pounds of food to grow the next pound. Didn't mention genetics, but when somebody says I want to catch a 13-pound bass, got to be Florida genetics in there somewhere, one way or another. Northern strain largemouth bass ain't going to hit 13 pounds unless something happens. It's a fluke. And then harvest. Got to have a good harvest plan. So Michael, let's see, Bled Elring, let's see, where are you? He's in San Antonio Airport trying to get to Dallas. Well, I could try to, I don't know if I could hitchhike and get you there, but good luck on that. Stephen Martin, Gentleman Jack tonight. I'm kind of a fan of that, although I don't have any in the RV. So, Travis, thank you for all you do. Oh my gosh, thanks. You know what? Very humbling. Thank you very much. And like I said last week, I think it's shame on me if I don't share. I have been blessed enough to have a fun business. And when somebody asks me, how you doing? I always, I'm still leading a pretty cool life. How about you? And I firmly believe that. I lead a pretty cool life, even at this age, which, what's that mean? So, I do appreciate that. I do think it's part of my charge to put this information out there so people can use it. I'm selfish if I don't. And it's not proprietary. You guys, well, some of it is. By the way, proprietary, hey, pondboss.teachable.com. Chris Blood would tell me to promote myself. I'm not good at that. I don't enjoy it. It's not fun. But I do have the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology out there. I go from being humble to a salesman. So if any of you are out there and you have land and you're thinking about building a lake or doing some land improvements, that whole curriculum is designed. The 6 pods, $425 if you want to buy it. But I promise you this, you will save way more than that by not paying the dumb tax. Now, I'm a big believer in dumb tax. I just paid some myself with my truck. And Dave Weber knows all about that. And I'm really pleased that he hasn't mentioned it again, so I won't. But part of what we try to do is help you keep from paying the dumb tax. So that means, what you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So part of my job, part of my mission is to help you learn more about this stuff so you can make good decisions. So I'm flattered that this many people watch this show, which I still don't get it. Who's going to watch a 66-year-old guy sitting in an RV talking about Ponder Lakes? You are. What's the matter with you people? Okay, so Michael Eric, let's see, he says, I had a hatchery from Missouri, bring up some fish in central Iowa. By the way, hey, Michael, it just dawned on me. I'm going to be in Iowa next week. I've got a guy, can't remember where he is, but he wants me to come up and take a look at his pond that he's building. So I want to be there Monday, so I don't know where you're going to be, and I don't know how much time I'm going to have because I'm going to drive because I really need some windshield time. I get some of my best ideas behind the windshield looking at those yellow stripes going really fast. Okay, let's see here. I had a hatchery from Missouri bring some fish in central Iowa at a 5-acre pond a few years ago, and the driver said, oh my gosh, it's one of the most beautiful lakes I've ever seen. I saw here in Iowa, we call these small water ponds. He said in Missouri, this is considered a lake. Explain this. Bob, kind of like up here, we say panfish. Down south, most people say brim. Well, I'll tell you what Mark McDonald used to say. When somebody asked him, what's the difference between a pond and a lake? McDonald always said, hey, if it's 3 acres in mine, it's a lake. If it's 3 acres in yours, it's a pond. So I think I'm going to leave you with that right there. Brim or sunfish, sunfish or brim, sockeye or crappie, chinkapin perch, warmouth, goggle eye. We call them green sunfish. Over there, they call them rice-filled slicks. So everything's got a little colloquial name, and I hope that you guys all have fun lakes or ponds, and I deeply appreciate you watching this show. Now, I'm not sure where I'm going to be next Wednesday, but you can pretty well bet I'm going to be hanging out with you. So, Michael, when I figure out where I'm going to be in Iowa next week, I will send you a private message and let you know. And Wayne and Josie, we're just about ready to hang out with you guys. We're not far from having this house ready, and it's almost time we spend a little time. So, I appreciate every one of you for watching this show, and until next Wednesday, adios.